Forget Syria. I want you to focus on S&P because you know it's just a matter of time before we are probably at war with that country. But I do want you to worry more about the very real war already going on against a ratings agency because it dared to downgrade this country. Far more troubling, far more menacing, and although no chemical weapons were used in S&P's case, political weapons that are far, far more financially damaging. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and does this script sound familiar? Independent entity challenges administration and gets whacked. Now, I could be talking about Texas's voter ID law that triggered a Justice Department lawsuit, or Arizona's crackdown on illegals that triggered another Justice Department lawsuit, but I'm not talking about a state here. I'm talking about an independent company here, an independent company that made the mistake of challenging the White House and now is paying dearly for it. That company is Standard & Poor's. It's a ratings agency, not much different than other agencies like Moody's and Fitch Investors, firms that completely botched the financial meltdown, and some argue might have even helped trigger it by assigning pristine credit ratings to less than pristine debt. That you know. What we know is they all sin. So why is the government going after just one sinner? Just S&P. To hear S&P tell it, here's why. Because the firm had the audacity to downgrade this country's AAA rating a couple of years back. Odd, because at the time, S&P argued it was because of the hopeless and hapless shenanigans of both parties, stumbling and bumbling through yet another budget mess that made a mockery of our financial standing, a routine to which we've all since become very accustomed. But it was S&P that pulled the trigger, didn't it? And now faces a loaded gun at its temple. The Justice Department says there is no connection, that the reason why it's seeking $5 billion in civil penalties is because S&P's sins are uniquely egregious, that it duped far too many into investing in securities that were, well, far too junky, but rated as anything but. Still, step back. Whatever your thoughts about S&P then, ask yourself why it is the one being singled out right now. Because Moody's and Fitch pulled some fast ones, but then again, they didn't downgrade the U.S., did they? Just like other states questioned the administration's stance against voter ID requirements, but only Texas up and enacted a voter ID law, didn't it? And other states challenged a hapless federal immigration policy, but only Arizona had the nerve to first initiate a crackdown on illegals of its own. Both got served with federal lawsuits as a result of their efforts. A not-so-subtle reminder that those who challenge the White House, they're going to regret it. Because let the message be brief. There will be briefs, lots of legal briefs, and a quick Chicago-style fist from any and all who will be of a mind to challenge. To the judge who says, none of this is surprising. But wow, it's front and center, huh?
Should I expect that Chicago-style fist? Look, S&P, Standard & Poor's, is a rating agency. They look at assets and they look at credit history, and they give an opinion, underscore opinion,
that's right,
on the creditworthiness of the entity they're examining. Was their opinion truly their opinion when they gave it, or did they give it for some nefarious reason? Look, there's no such thing as a false opinion. As long as the speaker of the opinion truly holds the opinion under the First Amendment, they can express it. The government didn't like what S&P said about it. At the time S&P said it, the president was talking about, oh, the 14th Amendment might allow me to cancel the national debt, or it might allow me to print money to pay bills even if the government won't raise the debt. The Republicans were saying, we might not raise the debt at all, and we'll just let the country go into default. The Democrats were saying, we have to spend more money than we can possibly generate from tax revenue. Who wouldn't come up with the opinion that investing in the federal government of the United States of America in 2010 was not investing in pristine debt?
And certainly not worthy of a AAA rating. But now the administration's argued and the Justice Department's argued this has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the firm's behavior right up to the financial meltdown when it was assigning high ratings to dubious credit. Now, I acknowledge as much that they screwed up, but they had plenty of companies screwing up, by the way, with Congress and other ratings agencies as well. Having said that, the only thing I could think that would single them out is that move to downgrade our debt.
So if three ratings agencies all say, hey, these credit default swaps, you know, they might work out. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but it might be a worthy investment. And people put their money in credit default swaps, and they all lose money. And all of those ratings were bad. And they were all based on faulty data, or they were all based on self-dealing. why did only one of the credit ratings get sued by the feds? Because that credit rating company, Standard & Poor's, as you pointed out in your very articulate opening statement, had the temerity to say, look twice before you buy federal bonds. Because if the government isn't going to pay those bonds back, you're going to be stuck.
And they were the only ones that pulled the trigger. I should stress that both Fitch and Moody's, and you and I were here when that whole drama was going on a couple of years back, they were threatening to do something like that. They said, we might have to put these on a credit watch, the step you take before you downgrade. They never pulled the trigger, though. S&P did, and it sort of shocked the world. And the defense we heard at the time was, well, the U.S. will always make good on its debts because we could just print money, which was an asinine cover. But having said that, the S&P saw the lunacy of that, and whether it sinned in the past on its own is completely disconnected to this.
Absolutely. Look, if S&P decided that Cavuto Enterprises, Inc., that renowned New Jersey corporation, was unworthy of investment, and Cavuto Enterprises, Inc. suffered, Cavuto could sue S&P. But when S&P says it about the government is restrained by the First Amendment, which basically has been interpreted by the courts as meaning there's no such thing as a false opinion. If you give an opinion and everybody knows it's an opinion, you can say what you want. So in S&P's opinion, the federal government was not worthy of the AAA status. That is a protected
Now, the government
opinion.
keeps that out of this. It says it has nothing to do with it. You suspect, though, that was a driving force.
It's the only explanation for why the government went after S&P and not after Fitch and Moody's, who essentially made the same generalizations about the credit default swaps before 2008 that S&P did as well.
Very good point, Judge. Great having you again, my friend.
Pleasure, Neil.
In the meantime, go ahead.